Which NFL teams are making the playoffs and who's staying home? It's Who's In, Who's Out on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's football station.
All right, time for Who's In, Who's Out. These are the 12 teams we think will make the NFL playoffs. Mike, Mosher, Ryan. Now, this is a third-week edition. I'm wondering if there's going to be any changes from last week, or at least from the start of the season. Who's in and who's out? Who are some of the preseason teams that we thought would get in? And now, after 3 weeks of watching them play, we formulated a different opinion of. Last week, we had some interesting changes. Let's see what the changes are this week. Let's dive into who's in and who's out in the AFC East. We got the Patriots unbeaten. This week, they play the Bills, who are unbeaten. So, you got two teams 3-0, two teams 0-3. Any reason to think that the Bills can knock off the Pats?
Throw the records out when it's Patriots and Bills.
No,
don't actually do that.
Let's keep on to them there.
Yeah,
Patriots,
I think the Bills
man.
would like to throw the record out, I'm sure.
Yeah, Bills have been a pleasant surprise, but no, I'm not ready to dethrone the Patriots.
No, but if we're going to look forward ahead, because I don't think any of us think the Patriots are going to lose this game, right? But if we are looking a little bit, as Mike said, about wild
Game's
card
in Buffalo,
teams,
right?
Is it? Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's in Buffalo.
Yes.
If we're looking at that mix of wild card teams and wondering if the 3-0 Bills deserve to be in it, let's say they go in and lose 21-20 or something like that, then you might,
Then next week, I think you might see them starting to pop, maybe.
Yeah. They have a very good defense.
They've got the Titans, the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Redskins coming up, and then they play the Browns and then the Dolphins again.
Yeah.
They can start running up some victories here.
Let me restate something I just said. I said the Bills have a very good defense. They've had a very good defense the first 3 weeks of the year. If they go and give up 30 points, though, to New England, I can't take it as seriously as I thought.
True. They've given up 47 points this year.
Right.
New England's given up 17.
This has got to be a matchup of what? Two top five? The number one offense versus what? The number 4 or 5 scoring offense? Scoring defense?
Well, Buffalo's only scored 66 points this year.
I'm sorry. I meant defense.
Oh, okay.
They've only allowed, you said 47 points?
47 points. New England's given up 17. Yeah. 47 would make them... Dallas has given up 44. Green Bay, 35. Minnesota, 47. Chicago, 39.
So it's the top 10 then.
Yeah. not Tampa Bay. The Rams, 49. So, yeah, they're there. They're pretty good, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, in the North, where there's only one team with a winning record, two teams haven't won yet. I got Baltimore.
I have Baltimore as well. They were my pick last week. I started off the year with the Steelers, but we all know how that train ended up. I have the Ravens.
So I've had the Browns all year long, and I was tempted to move them out for the Ravens this week, but I know they're playing each other this weekend.
Yeah, Baltimore's a 7-point favorite in that game, by the way.
And so the Browns have had to play some tough teams. I mean, they had to play the Rams, who are 3-0, and I just think it hasn't come together for them yet. Now, they could be completely fake, and I'll find out this weekend if the Ravens win.
I think the coach is a little over his head.
He might be.
I think the expectations of this team were ridiculous. Like, if they go 8-8, it's not a terrible year.
I don't know. They went 7-8-1 last year, and they brought in a ton of talent. I mean, if it was a Philadelphia team, we would have expected them with that influx of talent to be a Super Bowl contender.
This is also a team that was, 1-31, 2-32.
But it doesn't matter. The talent is what the talent is. Now, you might be right about the head coach and everything.
It takes time. That's all. It's
exactly.
early to crown them.
Exactly. That's why I am crowning them. I have them winning the North still, but if they lose to the Ravens this weekend, I will finally take them out.
I started the season off with Pittsburgh, but in week 1, I went to the Ravens. In week 2, I had the Ravens, and in week 3, I also have the Ravens.
Okay.
It only took me 1 week to say Pittsburgh is out of gas.
You're out.
Yeah, but I've been with the Ravens ever since. In the South, this is a division that right now is interesting. 2 teams 2-1, 2 teams 1-2. The 1-2 team, Tennessee, maybe had the biggest, most impressive win. They beat the Browns 43-13. Jacksonville,
and then probably the ugliest loss.
Yeah,
that's right. Jacksonville lost their quarterback. Indy lost their quarterback. And Houston had a nice win on the road last week. So let's go to the South. Geoff Mosher, who do you like?
Well, I've had the Texans all year long. I kind of thought they were going to dominate this division, but the Colts, and we'll see what happens with Jacksonville, just be their ability to stay in games if they don't win. I don't have much faith in the Titans after what I saw against Jacksonville, but I will stick with the Texans.
I think this has become a two-team race. I've had the Texans since the first week that we did who's in, who's out. I'm getting off the Texans train.
Oh,
I'm going with the Colts for the AFC South.
That's interesting.
There's just something there that I'm enjoing.
coming off a loss, nonetheless, right?
No, they beat the Falcons.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. They
won 2 in a row.
Jacoby Brissett, unbelievable, 77% passer rating completion, or passer completion, I should say. They look good. I like our boy Frank Reich over there. I think they're going to be consistent and end up taking this AFC South division.
I like Houston, and I've had them all the way through. They went on the road and had a nice win at the Chargers last week. We'll see what the Chargers are. A lot of people like them preseason, but they really played well in the game against L.A., so I'll stick with Houston. Looks like a runaway for the Chiefs. I got the Chiefs.
I have the Chiefs as well.
Yeah. You have the Chiefs. I have the Chiefs. I think we'd all have to have our heads examined if we didn't have the Chiefs.
It's a two-team conference.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, wild cards in the AFC. This one's tough. Do you like Buffalo at 3-0? You got Cleveland with 1-2. You've got not a lot of other winning marks. In fact, the only teams that have winning records, other than the ones we picked to win the division, is Buffalo, Indianapolis, and that is it. Nobody else has a winning record in the AFC. So I'm assuming that either you're putting Buffalo in or one of your teams that's making the wild card does not have a plus 500 record yet. So, Ryan, I'll start with you.
Texans are the wild card. I had them for the AFC South. Like I said, I'm putting the Colts in there, and I'm going to move the Texans to the wild card. I still think they're a playoff team. I just can't amok. And my second team is the Browns since day one as a wild card spot. And I still, is not in their favor. 9-7, and that could be enough to get a wild.
Kick the Steelers out of my wild card.
You've given
spot.
up on the Steelers.
I have given up on the Steelers, and I have put the Ravens in.
Baltimore's in.
Baltimore's in.
All right.
I had thought about the Colts over the Chargers, but again, we do this as a who do you think is going to be in the plan, not being week to week, and I am impressed with the Colts, but I had to ask myself this. At the end, I think the Chargers are going to be better than Colts. At this point, I still do think the Chargers are going to be the better team, despite their early struggles. So I have the Chargers as my second team.
Yeah, right? You're wrong, but that's a good question to ask yourself.
Might be right.
I agree with you. I had the Chargers as one of my playoff teams, and Indianapolis is the other. So wild card Indy Chargers. I'm going to stick with them. I had the Chargers all the way through. Early, I picked them to win the division. I switched on that back to Kansas City. I had Kansas City as the wild card. I flipped those two, but my second wild card team last week was Indy. It started off as Cleveland, then it went to Pittsburgh, but Indianapolis is in there firmly for 2 weeks in a row. I like what I see from the Colts, so I'm going Colts as the AFC wildcard entries. All right, let's look at the NFC. Who's in and who's out? These are the teams we think are in. The rest of them are out. NFC East. Last week I flipped to Dallas. I'm sticking with the Cowboys. I think right now they are the best team, and now they have a 2-game lead over the field.
I'm going with the Eagles. I'm sticking with them. And it's a little bit of a reach right now. But we have a quick turnaround. Eagles have a chance to get back to 2-2. Still a lot of football left to play. Still think they're the more talented team. And they have obviously plenty of football in front of them. I'm not ready to give up on the Birds just yet. But I tell you what, if Thursday doesn't go how we hope it to go, that could change.
I'm in agreement with Ryan. I kept the Eagles. I've had them all along. I know they're 2 games behind now, but Dallas has to play New Orleans this week, and if the Eagles beat Green Bay, they're back in. They're 2 wins. Dallas loses, it's close. So we got a lot of football left to play. I will say though, if they lose to the Packers, it's going to be hard for me to do this next week and justify putting the Eagles in number 1.
I'll tell you, and I'm sure this will come up at the end of this, but they lose and fall to 1-3. It's going to be a lot of tough math because the NFC losses will now be 1-3 in conference.
That's right.
So the math is going to start working against them pretty soon here in terms of tiebreakers, which turned into a mess a couple of years ago where you know that stuff. So keep that in mind when we do who's in, who's out. All right, North. This is you asked what's the best division. I said the North. Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears, all over 500 right now. So Geoff Mosher, who do you like?
I like the Vikings at the start of the year. I like what we mentioned earlier is that even though they are 2-1 and technically in third, they have the largest win margin so far at 31. I think by the end of the year, they're going to be the best team in this division. They still have the best defense. They actually have the best offense. They're just not using it the right way, which is my issue with the coaching staff right now. But until then, I still believe by the end of the year, they'll be the best team in the division.
I have the Packers. I've had the Packers since the jump, and I'm sticking with them. They're atop of the NFC North right now. Tough, competitive division. Can call it any way. I think any team right now is a good pick, but Packers are in front. They're the undefeated. Sticking with them.
And at the beginning of the year went Bears, and I think you saw last night why. That offense last night was the offense I thought we'd see more of, and their defense is outstanding. So I like the Bears. And
talk about defense in that division between the Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings. I mean, you've got some. And look, the Lions have actually played really good defense for a couple weeks here. So, outside of week one, it's a pretty good division for defense.
Yeah, no question. And the Bears, by the way, have only given up 39 points. That's second best in the division, 35 for the Packers. All right, let's go to the South. So the South was interesting. Breeze got hurt. And Atlanta had beat the Eagles. But right now, New Orleans is the only team in the division with a winning record. So, Saints, Bucks, Falcons, Panthers. Ryan, who do you like?
Saints. I had the Saints to start. First segment, pick the Saints to win the South. I'm sticking with them just based off what you said. I think they're in the best position. They're 2-1. Everyone else 1-2. I think the Falcons could give them a run for their money, but Bridgewater keeps this ship afloat, and they're going to be business as usual down in New Orleans. I'm going to go with them taking the NFC South.
Yeah, I've had the Falcons, and I was thinking about making a change there, but they've had a hard schedule. The Eagles win was impressive. I know they just lost this past weekend to now I forget. It was the Colts.
Who?
The
Falcons lost to the Colts.
Yes.
Yeah, but I still like them to. I don't know if the Saints can keep this up, what they did with Bridgewater and not Drew Brees over the long haul. So I'm going to put my faith still in the Falcons.
I like the Saints. One of the things, too, about the Saints is they got great weapons. I mean, Kamara's fantastic. Thomas is fantastic. And it's not like you're going to a backup quarterback who you're just hoping. This guy has a track record of a Pro Bowl. I mean, he was drafted to be the franchise quarterback, had that gruesome injury, but that was, 4 or 5 years ago now.
It's amazing, right? Yeah.
That injury occurred. So I like what the Saints bring in the North. In the South. Let's go to the West, where you got two teams unbeaten, one with one loss, and then Arizona, who's 0-2-1. This is an interesting division. Could get three teams out of the West here. Jeff, what do you think?
I'm sticking with Seattle. I've said for the whole time that this is going to be a team that I got to give it a little leash to because I think they're going to get better as the year goes on. They got a lot of new parts with Metcalf playing a big role, with Jadeveon Clowney just added before the season. So I know that they're not 3-0 like the Rams are, or I just don't believe in the 49ers yet, so I'm sticking with the Seahawks for now.
Tough division, guys. I mean,
sure.
NFC North and then looking at the NFC West, the 49ers are a pleasant surprise for most people, but I had the Rams since day one as well. I'm sticking with them. It's their division to lose. I think the 49ers are going to come down to earth. Seattle's going to be typical Seattle, but I don't see them dethroning the Rams, so the Rams are my pick.
I started with the Rams. I like the Rams as well. Look, they went on the road, and Cleveland isn't I don't know what to think of Cleveland, but it's not a pushover anymore. And they went to Cleveland and won that game on the road on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football, whatever it was. And I like the Rams. But this division, I'll tell you what, starting to believe in the 49ers, which goes to my wild card teams in a second. I'm starting to believe in the 49ers, and there's some other teams that I believe in that aren't making the playoffs here, which my NFC wild card. So I got the Rams there. My wild cards are Green Bay and Seattle.
Interesting.
I don't know right now. Philly lost to Detroit. I think Detroit's going to hang around. I think they could be at least 8-8, 9-7, which is going to give you some math problems. I think Seattle's in this thing to make it. I think San Francisco's in this thing. I don't think they're going away, so the math is going to be a problem there in the NFC. You're going to run into that problem. I got to imagine Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago, and Detroit, all those teams are going to be in the 8-9 win rate. I don't think you're going to see a 4-11 team, a 4-12 team in that division, so you're going to have some problem with the math there.
Man, you're not picking the Eagles to make the playoffs right now.
Not right now, no.
Wow.
Jumped off.
Big news. Big news. The two
I think
wild
that loss
card-
against the Lions is going to be a problem. I think, Mays was on to something. People were kind of knocking him, but Mays was on to something when he said that loss, it was kind of a must-win because now that loss is going to be a math problem. You're going to look back and say you're 1-2 in the conference. If you lose this game against Green Bay, you're 1-3 in the conference. You got almost no room for error to lose a conference game, and you still haven't played Dallas yet. You still have the rest of that North Division, which means you're going to have to sweep through Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago somehow. And I think they have Seattle on that list somewhere that Philly plays.
Yeah,
they play Seattle
this year.
Right.
Yeah.
They play Seattle
At home.
late in the year.
Thursday's a must-win.
The math is starting to get a little itchy.
You can't lose Thursday. You cannot lose. It's going to come back on the Detroit game, I think, as well. You can't lose that game at home. But my 2 wild card spots, guys, this is so tough. I mean, the NFC, like we've mentioned, very deep, and you're leaving out some good teams no matter who you pick. But I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Give them credit. They look sharp right now, top of the NFC East, undefeated. And then my other team's the Vikings. Little bit of a reach, but I had them since day one. I think they're going to figure out a way.
Reach. He hasn't won the division.
Yeah, but
Well,
when you
some
look
people
at,
think that's a reach on my part.
yeah, you
though.
look at Seattle, you look at the Niners, you
Well,
look
think
at
about
Detroit.
That. In my estimation, like Dallas, they're 3-0. Green Bay's 3-0. We all picked them. New Orleans is ahead. In the West, you got 2 3-0 teams that one of them nobody put in.
Right.
Detroit hasn't lost. Nobody put them in either, and they beat Philly. So how can I, in my right mind, Philly right now is third from the bottom. Mathematically, they're in big trouble right now with that loss to the Lions. I think Mays was right. I mean, that loss is going to be one that's going to be a big problem for them.
They have to go on a crazy run, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, my wild card teams. I'm going to make another change for the first time. I have to respect the Rams. I thought that was an impressive win in Cleveland. I didn't have them winning the NFC West. I stayed with the Seahawks, but they are a wild card, so I knocked out the Saints. And the Packers are my other one. So I don't believe in San Francisco. The combined record of the teams they've beaten right now is 1-8. So that's 0-3 Pittsburgh, 0-3 Cincinnati, and 1-2 Tampa. I'm just not that impressed with them yet. And we'll see about the Cowboys this weekend. They have a chance to get in with a win over the Saints.
Yeah, Dallas is, they're 3-0, and none of their wins have been all that impressive. They beat the Giants, they beat the Redskins, and they beat the Dolphins. Those teams are combined, 1-7, something like that?
Yeah.
Now they play at the Saints, then they got Green Bay, then they're at the Jets, then they play the Eagles. So, I don't know. I think Dallas getting out to that 3-0 start, makes it look good because they beat those 3 bad teams. But if they can win this game on the road at the Saints, I think that certainly – but they get the Saints without Breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still pretty good. Going into the Super Bowl.
Oh, I'm not questioning that. I mean, but it definitely helps the situation out as opposed to playing the Saints if you got them later on in the year and Breeze is there and they're battling for a playoff spot because they had lost some games earlier on in the year. Mm-hmm. That makes this game a little different. They got the Packers, but they get that game at home. They got the Patriots on the road. That's a tough spot for them. And they got the Rams in Dallas.
If the Cowboys go beat the Patriots, the internet's going to explode. And that's going to be deserving. They have some legitimate tasks ahead of them. Let's see what they do with it.
Yeah, no, and look, again, we do these based on your feeling after watching teams for 3 weeks and based on what they got coming up. I'm looking at the situation for Philly with those. If they lose the game on Thursday night, they're in some big trouble.
Major.
They're in some big trouble with the
agree.
NFC losses. The 3 NFC losses put you in a really, really tough spot this early in the year because now your margin of error is almost nil. When you play games in the NFC, they still have the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Bears, the Seahawks, the Giants, the Redskins, the Cowboys, and the Giants again. So the Eagles' schedule late in the year, Miami, Giants twice, and Redskins. You got 4 out of 5 where you got to feel pretty good. You got Dallas wrapped in there too, and you got the game against Seattle right before that. But you do have a couple of softies late in the year. So we'll see. But the game Thursday night, looking at those standings, that game Thursday night has become way bigger than a September
It's a must-win.
Week 4 game should be.
Huge game.
Huge. If it's not must-win, it's as close to it as you can get.
Yeah, I mean,
It's actually really not, but we can say it is.
I mean, you can't. It's just,
It's
of course,
just
it's
so
not.
early. It's not. Like I brought up the team in 2003 that started off 2-3. You know, they lost to the Cowboys. They were about to be 2-4 to the Giants, and then Westbrook returns the punt for a touchdown. Then they're just 500 in that game, and then they win 10 straight games and win the division. Now, granted, the rest of the division stunk that year. You know, Dallas and Washington and New York.
well, the
were all-
rest of the division, other than Dallas, is
yeah.
not very
So,
good.
and you got to play them twice, so they could literally still win the division by losing, even if they lose to Green Bay. So it's not really over, but we'll, you know, I get.
No,
I get
but
the
I
point.
think
it is hard.
I think what would be a problem is if you're wrapped up in that wild card conversation.
that becomes very difficult. with
That's
the
when it gets
tiebreakers.
tougher. And
Yeah.
like last
it
year,
almost is easier to make it as a division winner.
right? Well,
than
last year
definitely.
we were
Yeah.
talking about that a lot, and it was like it was almost easier to be the division winner than it is the wild card spot because you're just fighting with so many other teams, and there's a lot of depth in the NFC this year. You've got
You already lost to 2 contenders for the wild card.
well, and realistically, let me ask you guys: how many people out there think that Detroit is a legitimate possible wild card team? Because if you think they're in this for the long haul, they beat you head to head.
Yeah, I need time on that.
I think they're a good team, but with the depth that we've been talking about with the NFC, I don't see them getting in. But I think they're going to be a tough out every week. They're not a pushover.
If they have a game plan
They got a
offensively,
stretch coming up here where they're in some trouble.
Yeah, I know there's
The Chiefs at
the
Green Bay,
Packers,
and the Vikings.
And
And then they got the Giants and
yeah.
the Raiders.
I need about 3 weeks to let you know if they're real or not.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, like, if you're putting them at, even like I said, even if they're around 500 and you're kind of in that 9-7 and they're there, they've knocked you off already.
Even if they drop 2 of those 3 games, they're 3-2-1. I mean, they're still in a good spot.
That's true. And I think San Francisco's another one that not a lot of people thought were in the mix, and now they're 3-0 all of a sudden. And I told you, that defense is legit. Their defense is pass rush city, baby. They come after you.
Didn't
with
the
that pass
Niners
rush.
start 2-0 or 3-0 a couple years ago before Jimmy G went down, and they lost like 10 straight?
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, that's why he got that huge contract.
Yes.
Right.